But right now, I want to catch up with the New South Wales Deputy Premier, John Barilaro, who joins us live from the Sydney CBD. Thanks for joining us, John. You've been outspoken here about how Australia's not doing enough. Governments of all persuasions, state and federal, not doing enough to build dams in this country. Now, I'm certain that most people watching us now would agree with you, but how many dams has the New South Wales Coalition built in the past 2 terms it's been in power?
Well, and that's the point, Chris, and thank you for having me. The point is that through red tape, green tape, a culture of finding excuses why not, rather than solutions on how to do it, we haven't built dams. Yes, we've built a small dam down my way in a little community called Nimmitabel that was on stage 6 water restrictions. It was 3 years overdue. Out of a $6.5 million build, $2.5 million went to environmental impact studies, and it delayed it by three plus years while our community was on stage 6 water restrictions for almost a decade. And that's part of the problem. And that's why I'm outspoken today, you know, through my view of the world, and that is if the Snowy scheme was to be put forward today as a project to be built, we'd never do it. We'd never get on with it. We'll find all the reasons, excuses why not to do it. And we've got to change that culture. We've got to get away from environmental impact studies. We've got to get away from business cases to justify the spend. We're in the worst drought, and if there's a lesson to be learned in this drought, is that we must be better prepared in the next drought.
But there was a major dam proposed for the Upper Hunter. That was scrapped for various reasons. There are proposals now that have been around a long while to raise the wall of Warragamba Dam to increase its storage. That's not happening. When are you actually going to make some of these things happen?
Yeah, look, Warragamba Dam here in Sydney is a flood mitigation project, not really in relation to more water storage for future growth. So I'll just take that out of the equation.
Sydney's on water restrictions at the moment, and Warragamba's the main storage. Surely if you have more storage there, sure, there's a flood mitigation role, but surely it's going to help Sydney get through a drought like this.
Yeah, absolutely, but my focus is on the bush. So Wyangler Dam, we've committed $650 million to raise the wall at Wyangler in the central west. Why? It's the same size, 650 gigs, is the same size as the new dam, yet the bureaucracy internally is giving you a lot of reasons why we can't do it. It'll take 3 years before we see a bulldozer in the ground, and that's just not good enough. Dungowan Dam up at Tamworth, including some pipelines, Mole River Dam on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. These are dams that we've identified, and there's some opportunity to look at underground dams by recharging aquifers. But the green tape and the red tape of government, and I've said that, and deliberately pointing to government internally, over decades of all colours and persuasions, has meant that we just don't ever build them. We talk about them, we plan for them, and we always find an excuse why we can't. And today what I'm saying is we've got to truncate all this red tape and green tape. That'll upset a whole heap of stakeholders. But we were elected to govern, we're leaders, and we've got to get on with leadership. And that is to make some tough decisions and get on with it.
But the Coalition was elected to govern in New South Wales how many years ago?
Yeah, in 2011, absolutely. And like always, it takes a catastrophe or a crisis, and now we're in a drought. In 2016, all our storages in New South Wales after what was excessive rains and floods were almost at 100% right across the state. 3 years on, we're now looking at running out of water in regional rural communities. This is the extreme ends of the way the environment's working. We'll get drier, longer periods, but we'll also get probably more intense wet periods. So what we should do is build more storage and capacity so that we can actually meet our needs in the future. And if those guys that want to talk about climate change, if you want to battle with the longer, drier periods, allow us to build the dams today. Stop fighting us on getting this stuff done. And I've said it before, if a few frogs have got to die, so be it. But now's the time. And as a state government, I want to lead that charge. I want to truncate a whole heap of processes, but I'll also need the federal government to jump on side.
You absolutely. This is very much a federal issue as well. Let's just have a look at what the Labor's federal agricultural spokesperson, Joel Fitzgibbon, has had to say about this.
It's lazy for John Barilaro and others, including, I saw at the Nationals Federal Council on the weekend, they were banging on about dams again. Well, again, Laura, they've had 6 years to do this, and they've done nothing.
It's a fair point, John. I suppose this is what troubles me. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but here you are, the leader of the Nationals, the Deputy Premier of New South Wales. You've been in government for more than 8 years, yet you say you're being frustrated. You can't build the dams you want to. In other words, you're letting the bureaucracy trample over government.
Well, that's exactly what's happening, what I'm saying. But, you know, Joel Fitzgibbon's comments, right? Don't forget, all colours of government. I'm not playing the blame game here. Joel can play that game, right? But it's been decades. We haven't built a dam in this country. Forget New South Wales for a second, but in this country for God knows how long, a serious dam, one at a level that'll actually make a difference, and that's all colours of all governments for a very, very long time, because we've been all held to ransom by the Greens and the environmentalists, the so-called scientists that use the data and their expertise to tell us why we can't do something, rather than using that data and using new technology on how to do it. And, Joel Fitzgibbon can shoot from the sideline. Just remember, before the election, the federal election, and what was a significant swing against him in his own seat, he was pro-climate change, pro-changing the world that we know it as it today. He wasn't really, I don't believe, on the side of agriculture or mining, yet he got a big swing and the bat to him in an election. And now on his road to Damascus moment, he's now realised that he wants to be on the side of history that builds dams. Well, I'm not going to be lectured by Joel, that's for sure. But I'm not going to criticise him or criticise other governments. We've got an opportunity to do this, and that's why at a state level, I want to see a truncation of even getting rid of the EISs and business cases, because we've done enough work to identify where these dams have to be. Let's just get on with it. Let's get some bulldozers in the ground.
Well, absolutely. You've got to get on with it. And obviously, you coming out like this means that you're going to be judged in 3 years' time on what you can actually deliver in New South Wales when it comes to dams. But when you look across the nation, over the past decade, tens upon tens of billions of dollars have been spent by private investors and governments, encouraged by government subsidies and targets, to build renewable energy projects. And we've also had more than $10 billion of government money spent on the desalination plants. I mean, there's been no shortage of money, but it's all been spent on the wrong priorities, trying to pretend we can change the climate by messing up our electricity system. If half of that money had been spent on dams and water infrastructure, we'd be in a much better place today facing this drought.
Well, I agree, and that is why I said, even in my piece, my op-ed piece today, that even if we had to push the budget into deficit for a little while, if we've got to borrow money, but money is so cheap at the moment, cheaper than CPI. You can build it today, cheaper than you could do in the future if you saved every dollar to do it. So we've got an opportunity to do it today. We're in the worst drought. Australians know it. The Sydney-siders who have been given to drought relief, they know it. Everybody knows it. I think even some of those environmentalists might be thinking about, maybe we've gone too hard on stopping the building of dams. So now is the time. This is it. If we don't achieve this in the next 4 years, and you're right, I'll be judged on this. Happy to be judged in 4 years' time. Because if we don't take this moment, Chris, we will never build a dam in this country. So let's use this moment, the worst drought in history, in recorded history. Not that when it rains we forget about it, but let's start it today. Let's get on with it. And then, you know what, in the next drought, we'll think back and we'll be like our forefathers who designed the snowy schemes, which took decades to build, different colours of governments, different jurisdictions, different state levels of government, and they just got into something that was a piece of engineering masterpiece that we talk about today, just as important today. So let's just get on with it. No more excuses. I'm going to find a way to cut through and truncate a whole heap of processes. There'll be a bit of a fight with that, but I need everybody on side.
John Barilaro, how about, we've all had, we're sick of hearing about renewable energy targets of various descriptions, state and federal, and we continue to hear about them. How about this nation sets itself a water storage target so that in every part of this country that is drought prone, and that's pretty much all of the continent, we should be aiming to ensure that there's at least 6 or 7 years water storage. Is that beyond us?
I reckon that's a fantastic call. And you know what? We're hearing these councils and people all across the country talking about the climate change emergency. The real emergency is a drought and water emergency. It's a crisis and we need to get on with it.
Well, John, I just want to get you on a couple of state-based issues unrelated to this issue. Premier Gladys Berejiklian, the New South Wales Premier, is facing a tough time with the abortion debate. She's guaranteed that she's going to see that bill she voted for be amended in the Parliament. Can she deliver those numbers? And would that be a fatal blow to her premiership if she can't?
No, not at all. I mean, look, she's shown strong leadership on this. I mean, when you look at the public view on this particular issue about decriminalising abortion out of the Criminal Act into the Health Act, the vast majority of New South Wales voters and residents and citizens, want that change. The argument now is around the edges about the 22 weeks, about what happens with sex selection, etc. There will be a number of amendments that I know are being negotiated across all party lines in the upper house. Let's hope we can get some of those up. But in truth, you know, this is something that's in line with what the community wanted. There's no doubt about that. And the Premier has shown leadership. So this isn't about undermining her leadership. Not at all. You know, in this period, I think she's had to be tougher, showed more greater and stronger resolve, and she's done so. But you're never going to please everyone in this debate. These are personal, emotive issues that everybody has a different view and opinion. That's why there's a free vote or a conscience vote in the parliament reflective of different communities. And there are no winners, but you've got to have the debate. It's got to be done with respect. I respect all sides of this debate and every single view, but we must do that in a respectful manner. And I'm confident this week and over the next few sitting weeks, we'll be able to get to the end of this and come out at the other end with something that is in line with community.
So how helpful were the public interventions yesterday by your former national leader and former Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce and also former Prime Minister Tony Abbott talking about infanticide on demand and killing people?
Well, you know, that sort of language doesn't help and isn't respectful to the debate. As I've said previously, I absolutely respect Barnaby's views on this. And he's been vocal and he has every right to be so principled on this issue, and I respect his views. What I don't respect is when you lose respect for the other side of the debate or you do the robocalls into people's own homes. I believe is a breach of privacy. It really disrespects the views of individuals. God knows those that receive those phone calls in their homes, what they've been through, those families. There are a lot of people that have got their own personal stories in this debate. So respect the view. Absolutely, I don't mind getting out there strong, but, you know, the language has got to be respectful to the broader debate.
Well, thanks for joining us, John. And if you want to take up my idea of a water storage target, feel free.
Thank you very much. Talk again.